From Cheap Homesteading. I'm in the garage today and we're working on the Gravley walk-behind tractor. It is a commercial 12 that someone painted red, but you know what, I really can see that this thing would be handy. And you know what's happened? This is about 2.5 years ago I got this tractor. I got a great deal on it, but ever since it's been sitting in my garage and I haven't been able to use it. So that is no good, and I have a lot of stuff that isn't running right now, so I've been putting a push on and getting all my equipment up and running and good working order, because you know what, it's no good to have it if you can't use it. I started making a video taking the carburetor off this thing, and then that's where it ended. Another year has gone by and I didn't even attempt to clean the carburetor or anything. So this week I started trying to clean the carburetor. The carburetor was all seized. I couldn't get the main jet out. And I was going to buy a carburetor kit, and I looked on Amazon and it is shocking. A carburetor kit is practically more expensive, well not quite, a little bit cheaper than buying the whole carburetor. And I thought, you know what, we're just going to get a whole carburetor, put it on, and I know this thing's been sitting for a long time, so it probably needs more than a carburetor. So there's going to be footage from when I took the carburetor off. We're going to throw the carburetor on today, and we're going to see if we can get it up and running. This thing has not been running for at least probably, I don't know, I'm sure 6 years. So the first thing we're going to do is pull the fuel tank off it and then drain that. Put some fresh gas, take the carburetor off it. So under the tank there's a little tap, shut that off. So we're going to remove this line. We're going to take the fuel tank out, dump it out, see what it looks like inside. There is nothing worse than leaving a piece of equipment sit and not use it. The gas they have today is awful, with the high amount of ethanol in it. Ethanol, like in the old days, the gas lasted a long time. But now it can go bad in about a couple months for sure. So you shouldn't be storing gas for a long time unless it's stabilized. And if you have any engine that's been sitting for a long time, it's probably not going to start unless you clean out the fuel system. Definitely got a color to it. It's funny, it didn't smell overly bad though. The tank looks really, really clean. Okay, we'll take this line off. So the next thing we're going to do is remove the carburetor. So we'll take the intake off, disconnect the linkages in the fuel line. Get the fuel line off. This linkage is a little tin clip. You kind of pry up on the clip and then it just pops right off. So you get a 1/2-inch wrench and then you loosen the bolts that hold the carburetor onto the intake. So there you go, we got the carburetor off. Now we just gotta clean it. Ooh, I think this thing needs a carburetor kit. Wow, look at the rust in there. Everything moves though. Here's the old carburetor. I'm gonna keep it for parts, but the main reason is I couldn't get the jet out good, and man, it's amazing how cheap these carburetors have really gotten. It's absolutely crazy. We're just going to clean up the surface and install the carburetor. Okay, so I start the bolts in the gasket, makes it a lot easier to get it to line up. It's almost impossible to get a socket on it, and there is a slot for a screwdriver, but even that, the carburetor pretty well covers up most of it, so it doesn't really help you very much. We're going to pop the throttle on, make sure the throttle moves free. My choke cable seized, but really I could just use that by hand. I don't think I even need the choke cable to work. First, you put down this little rubber mat so the fuel tank won't wear. And the fuel tank straps go right here. Another thing that's important is you shut the lid and make sure that your fuel cap lines up. Gravleys were awesome machines. They came with one power plant and they would run many, many attachments. And in my mind, I feel like that's the best way to go. We've kind of got away from that because it's cheaper to sell someone a snowblower, sell them a rototiller, sell them a bunch of other equipment that you have to maintain and keep running, and then inherently you end up using it less, and then you have to go and replace it. So we've become such a throwaway society that it's actually just crazy. So there you go, we got the tanks installed. We'll throw the fuel lines on it. I'll make sure clean fuel goes through the actual fuel pump before I hook up to the carburetor. I want to make sure that it's all good. I just don't know if the line broke or what, but they cut the line and put a little rubber line in between. The original rotted off, so I went and I got some new line. Stuff on. The line is small, but it's no smaller than the inside of the steel line, so it should give enough fuel. Okay, so we want to keep that away from the exhaust. Not going to start it up yet, but we'll fuel it up, and I'll make sure that I get some fuel coming out of the line, coming out of the pump. Just make sure everything else is clean the whole way before we actually hook it up to the carburetor. Getting the carburetor on is half the battle. This tractor has sat for a very long time, and I really doubt the thing has spark. If anyone's worked on breaker point systems, man, you need to clean it up. You need to get everything going, and especially if it sits a long time. So I really doubt this thing will fire up, but we're going to give it a try. So the first thing is someone put a light switch instead of the ignition. So we're just going to hot wire this. Okay, just going to put an old spark plug in here, and we're going to roll it over and see if I can see spark. This tractor has been sitting for years. I bet it's been 10 years. It hasn't been started. And if anyone knows about a points condenser, you pretty well need to replace them, clean them up. So it's not a surprise that it wouldn't start. I really should have checked if it had spark before today. That's the way this thing's going on this Gravley, so you kind of hope that it has spark. So I'm going to find a key switch for it. We'll order in points condenser, and another day we'll get it up and running. And I'm hoping in the next week. So this is a Kohler 12 horse. Kohler 10s and 12s are basically a very common motor, especially these old motors, so I should be able to get the points and condenser pretty quick. So that's about enough for today, and you guys have a good one.